I think it's just more about execution. If people want to say, well, why are you picking this? I think you can make that argument for any game that a team loses. And most of the time,
Sure.
players and staff are just going to tell you, well, yeah, this maybe there's something that could be better, but we also just played really poorly around it.
This is Azento from Esports Heaven, and I have here with me actually head coach Jimmy for Golden Guardians after the series against FlyQuest. Now, for those that don't know, you are the head coach now for Golden Guardians, but previously you were the two-way player coach. So could you kind of give me a little description on that previous position and then your transition into head coach for Golden Guardians now?
So the two-way player coach is a position I think some people aren't really familiar or they don't really understand what the function is. But ideally, it's a coach that moves between academy and LCS, working with individuals on individual improvement. So when the head coach is working on a lot of overall concepts and they're dealing with a lot of the team culture and things like this, the two-way player coach gets to spend a lot of time with the player individually, doing one-on-ones, looking at VOD reviews individually, talking about champion picks or whatever. After week 3, we decided that we have really strong players, we saw really clear strengths, but we felt that we could allocate the coaching staff a little differently because one of my strengths is team culture, kind of getting the players to come together, understanding the value of wanting to help and sacrifice for each other. And we did that from week 3 and we find ourselves here in playoffs, so I guess it was a good move.
Okay, yeah, no, that sounds great. Because one of the concerns was in the beginning, of course, Golden Guardians were quite down, and then there were concerns of, hey, well, how are their academy guys doing? You know, not a lot of LCS viewers, I would assume, don't watch academy as closely. So there might have been questions of just like, well, why don't they take a look at their academy players? Did you ever go through that phase of just, well, do we really need to sub in some of these rookies onto the starting lineup? How was that kind of chaos in the early beginnings of the season between Academy and LCS rosters?
Sure. I think that the approach to how you want to use Academy when you're losing, I think is something that a lot of LCS teams don't really understand. One of the benefits of being in a franchise system is you're kind of allowed that space for trial and error, right? When I look at us starting 0-4, I was still really confident. I know the players that I have, I know what they're capable of, and we had a slow start, and even within the slow starts, a lot of those games are winnable. So I think if you're going to start 0-4 and you instantly want to start cutting people or you want to give players in academy chances, you're not really giving the benefit of the doubt to what the general manager built.
Yeah,
so it's my job to come in and say, hey, we're really good, but we need to improve these things if we want a chance to start winning games. We make small adjustments. And then as soon as you start winning, that tends to snowball, where the kids start having more fun. The guys are really hyped to want to get on stage and play together more. So it kind of builds on itself. And I think the approach that we had at GGS was really good. I'm also a really big believer that the whole concept of like a 10-man roster and things like this, it's kind of a buzzword. I genuinely believe that if my LCS and Academy guys are interacting well together and the information's getting kind of pushed along, and when my coaching staff is utilizing them to try to find their strengths, there's no reason where I need to kind of push like an emergency button and say, hey, the room's on fire, we need to fix this.
So as far as your beliefs in the 10-man roster system, I know, of course, Optic have been preaching it and CLG have been preaching it. Do you find as though the pressure from the Academy squad is actually useful and you can utilize that to kind of kick into gear the main roster? What are your thoughts on just pressure from Academy onto the main roster?
I think in an ideal world, obviously when you have a guy working behind you and you see them improving and doing well, you're going to feel the need to say, okay, I have to perform better. But from what I see, as far as the other teams and their 10-man rosters, that's not the case at all. And in fact, it's just teams losing, panicking, and then throwing other players in, hoping they're going to do well, which tells me a lot of the coaching staffs don't actually know what they're doing. I think at GGS, it's very much different. You see Academy working really hard, and obviously the LCS guys are feeling that. But I want my guys interacting with each other and trying to help each other get better. Even if you look at it now, my 2 LCS subs for playoffs were Sheep and Hard. They're in there for every single scrim, talking in review, trying to give feedback to their counterparts to help them get better. I think that this idea of you just need, you need a hard pressure because if you mess up, I'm gonna pull you out. It's a bunch of nonsense, and I think a lot of the orgs that I see trying to do it, I think it's kind of a facade. I don't think that it's functioning the correct way.
Okay, let's shift over to the actual game for against FlyQuest because Froggen got to pick Vel'Koz quite a bit this best of five. So was this always in his wheelhouse?
Definitely. I think historically, if you look at it, Henrik's really talented on control mages in general. That's not to say he can't play the assassins or other things like this, but he definitely has a skill set where he's really comfortable on those, where a lot of people playing Vel'Koz into Aurelia, for example, you'd feel a lot of pressure, whereas he was really confident and said, just give me the matchup. It's something we've been working on for a little bit as far as a response to some of the ways FlyQuest is going to draft. So I was happy we got to pull it out, and even earlier in the day in LEC, I know I got picked bot lane in one of the matches. So I think it's a pick that teams are going to start picking up, and I think there's a couple picks that we've been pulling out in scrims that all the top teams have been pulling from as well. So yeah, I think it's just, it feels good when we have players that are that flexible.
Okay. Is there anything in particular which you think we'll see coming into semifinals or even finals as far as a pick is concerned?
I don't want to leak anything. Competitive integrity. We'll see what happens with the teams choose to play, but I'm sure there might be some picks where we'll say, well, we beat you with that in scrims, so. Yeah.
Okay. I thought I'd ask, but so as far as the Lissandra pick, now I know a lot of fans are going to be questioning it because you guys had lost today on Lissandra. So what was the reasoning behind this pick? Was it something in which you just wanted to take away from the enemy team, or was it actually something that was comfortable for Golden Guardians as a five-man lineup with team strategy and team calm?
We're comfortable on Lissandra the same way we are with Vel'Koz or if it's Karthus or whatever pick. Lissandra is just a really strong champion right now, especially in the mid 2v2 when you pair it with an aggressive jungler. It's very easy to get prio and make moves, which is why it's a high priority pick for most of the NA teams. We were making adaptations based on counter picks that both teams were showing. We obviously have a lot of answers into it, and then FlyQuest showed they could play the Zoe into it and the Swain into it.
Yeah.
I think it's just more about execution if people want to say, well, why are you picking this? I think you can make that argument for any game that a team loses. Most of the time, players and staff are just going to tell you, well, yeah, maybe there's something that could be better, but we also just played really poorly around it.
Okay, and another pick that I noticed was kind of strange because FlyQuest really didn't challenge you on it that much, was the Galio and Jarvan combo. This came out multiple times, and it just seems like they didn't care about it and they kind of knew it was coming. So what are your thoughts on that combo specifically and the importance of it in this best of five specifically?
Yeah, I think it's a really strong combo in general. In other regions, you'll see a lot of people pick Galio into Braum because you can taunt flash and essentially one-shot someone. As far as the Jarvan, it's a pick that's always going to allow you to have good engage, regardless of what the rest of your comp looks like. It'll give you more flexibility to pick maybe more lane-dominant things that aren't going to bring you that raw CC. The difficulty as far as like the cooldowns and lining it up means you have a window to pull off this play with Jarvan ulting and Galio ulting in, and if you mess it up, the enemy team now has a window to do what they want to do. I definitely think it's strong. I think that the way we were drafting it was correct, and I think, again, it kind of comes down to execution, but there's a couple of fights that you'll see where we did execute it well, and you can see why it's strong.
Yeah, okay. So I think that wraps it up for the game itself specifically. As far as the ending of the season, you guys are now out. And is there anything you want to add as far as thoughts for the end of the season and kind of what you expect going into Summer Split for the fans?
As far as the fans, I mean, first of all, I just want to say thank you. I think that from what GGS went through last year, back-to-back 10th place, anything that we're showing this split as far as making playoffs is going to seem really promising. I really hope people can see that we're trying to make the right steps. We're trying to be really proactive. A lot of the changes that were made coming into this split after the offseason was a new general manager in Dane and Flander, kind of just signing a brand new roster, essentially -2 players, bringing in new staff. I expect us to continue growing, and while from the outside it looks great to say we made playoffs, we should be proud of that, I know my guys are saying, well, that was just to be expected. So I think that when the fans can see that our players have that drive, that we're getting better and we're being proactive about trying to improve and be one of those top contenders seriously, and not just saying it as a cliche, I hope that eventually there'll be some more hype around us.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking forward to the Summer Split when you guys turn up even harder. I mean, you already made playoffs, so.
True, you'll see some more fun picks for sure.
Okay. Well, this has been Azento from Esports Heaven and Jimmy from Golden Guardians. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I assume if you made it this far, you probably enjoyed the content. So if you did, subscribe and also check out my other content that's more analytical and opinionated. But otherwise, keep it locked at esportsheaven.com, and I'll see you next time. Peace.